my name is Ayano Healy, and I'm an urban planner and consultant working for the City of Missoula on the Our Missoula project. The purpose of this video is to provide a summary of an analysis that will inform the Our Missoula Growth Policy and Comprehensive Code Reform project. The analysis is called the Equity and Land Use Report. This video is broken up into 4 segments. First, we'll provide some background on the Our Missoula project and some historical context. Then, we'll review 3 key issues of housing affordability, segregation, and exclusion. The third video turns to a distinct but equally important set of issues, displacement and gentrification. The fourth and final video concludes with some potential solutions for advancing equity in Missoula. It's important that you know how your feedback during this phase of the project will be used. There are 3 ways we will use it. First, to confirm if our findings align with your day-to-day experiences living in Missoula. Also, to refine how we measure and describe equity issues in order to create better solutions. And thirdly, to understand your top concerns about equity so that we can prioritize solutions. The purpose of the Equity and Land Use Report is to help guide the city in making changes to land use codes and policies that will address pressing issues of social equity and housing affordability. The report explains the many facets of equity, evaluates the city's current codes and policies, and establishes benchmarks for measuring progress on equity issues. Now for some more background on key terms and milestones. Why is the city focusing on equity? In 2019, the city adopted a citywide housing policy, which called for the city to evaluate equity issues associated with land use codes and policies. Since 2021, the city has committed to addressing issues of justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion in all of its policies. What do we mean when we say equity? The city has defined equity as the full and equal access to opportunities, power, and resources so that all people achieve their full potential and thrive. What is a growth policy? The growth policy is a community plan for managing growth and development over the next 20 years. The plan provides direction for new development and sets the vision to sustain and enhance the community. What do we mean when we say code? The vision of the growth policy is implemented by a set of city codes. One important code is the zoning code, which regulates how land can be used, where buildings can be located, and the size and shape of the building. Codes also regulate the design of streets, open space, utilities, and other issues related to development. The equity issues discussed in the report are not only the result of recent events, they have roots in events and practices that occurred over decades and centuries. In order to make sense of the present-day issues related to equity, we need to examine history. From the beginning of human time, the area now occupied by the city of Missoula has stood at the heart of the Aboriginal territories of the Salish and Upper Kalispel nations, the 2 easternmost tribes of the Salish language family. Both the tribal and oral traditions and archaeological evidence indicate a presence here, a rich and beautiful cultural heritage reaching back to the end of the last ice age and continuing to the present day. The place known in English as Missoula sits at the heart of the far larger tribal territories. Across these vast areas, Salish and Kalispel people lived in a way of life based on profound relationship with and knowledge of the lands and waters, and with all of the plants and animals that inhabit them. There were, and still are, harvested within a culture of respect and ceremony, ensuring that their abundance for generations to come. The spread of the fur trade in the 19th century brought the first commodification of the natural world to the Northern Rockies. This commodification was part of a new Euro-American economic system that initiated the transformation of the prevailing socioeconomic way of life of that of the Salish and Kalispel nations had known for thousands of years. A key moment in the taking of tribal lands occurred in 1855, when U.S. officials and tribal leaders signed the Treaty of Hellgate. Under the terms of the treaty, plagued by poor translation and misunderstanding, the tribes ceded title to most of their lands west of the Continental Divide, while reserving as sovereign unceded territory of both the Jocko or Flathead Reservation and the Bitterroot Valley south of Lolo Creek. The tribes also reserved the right to continue hunting, fishing, gathering plants, and pasturing their animals on open and unclaimed lands on the ceded areas. The Salish and Kalispel people were subjected to numerous injustices caused by the non-indigenous newcomers. The newcomers rationalized and executed the dispossession of tribal land based on a system of land ownership, resource extraction, and profit. This is a stark reminder that the rules about how land can be used and who can use the land can inflict immense harm. Any consideration of social equity in land use in Missoula must be guided by a shared understanding of the original inhabitants of the valley for millennia, their profoundly different relationship with the land, water, and wildlife, and the cultural significance of the land that remains today. As Missoula grew in the 1900s, discriminatory practices related to land use and housing impacted where BIPOC families, Black, Indigenous, or people of color, could live or buy property. These practices were commonplace across the country during this time, and there is some evidence that it took place in Missoula as well. Both the private real estate industry and government agencies contributed to practices that prevented BIPOC families from buying or renting homes in certain neighborhoods. These practices could be subtle. For example, real estate agents prevented BIPOC families from touring houses in mostly white neighborhoods, limiting their options to certain neighborhoods that were more racially and ethnically diverse. Mortgage lenders also blocked access to home loans to BIPOC families if they wanted to buy a house in a mostly white neighborhood. These practices could also be direct and explicit. In some neighborhoods, it was commonplace for property owners and developers to record legal restrictions on the use of their property. These are called covenants. Some of these covenants directly stated that BIPOC households could not buy or live in these homes. These practices are now illegal under the Fair Housing Act and other federal, state, and local laws. However, the impacts of these practices likely still play a role in explaining why Missoula's neighborhoods look like they do today. This concludes video 1 of the series.